Okay, you're good to go.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the meeting of the Fairfield Human Services Commission. It's Thursday, June 25th, and the time is 4 o'clock. I'm first going to take a roll call of members to see who's present. Please respond by saying here or present. Laura Inserto.
Present.
Linda DiLorenzo.
Present.
Carolyn Sturgey. Rabbi Paris. Nitron.
Present.
George Markley.
Present.
Loretta J.
I'm here.
And Susan Testani. Thank you for that. Just for the record, we do have a quorum. In place of the Pledge of Allegiance, just a brief moment of silence and acknowledgement of all those who have experienced any pain or sorrow during the pandemic, and an acknowledgement of the work done by our first responders. Thank you for that. And first of all, a very generous welcome to everyone. I'm glad we're able to do this. It's been a long 3 months for everyone, so I'm glad we're back in business, even if we are doing it virtually and remote. First order of business is the approval of the minutes of the last formal meeting of the Commission, which was February 27th. I think a copy of the minutes in draft form were distributed to everyone. Are there any changes or edits that anyone would like to make?
Hey, Bernie, can we just remind everybody you need to identify yourself when you're speaking for the record, please? This was Julie.
Yes, please.
I propose that we approve the minutes.
It's Linda, and I second that.
All right. I have a motion to approve and a second. Are there any comments? We'll take the minutes approved as approved. I also just want to remind people that in addition to identifying yourself, the proceedings are being recorded. So be aware of that. And if there are members of the public on, they do not have the facility to speak. They will have been invited to send their comments in directly to Julie. The next item on the agenda was an update from the Board of Health that we had anticipated Carolyn would be providing. And I don't think that was Carolyn. Someone just joined? Okay.
Barbara had joined a little bit before, but I'm not Caroline.
Oh, I'm sorry. Barbara, welcome.
Thank you.
And we'll show you as present at the meeting. Thank you. Julie, I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to Carolyn over the intervening period, but I know she has been attending the Board of Health meetings.
She has been. I don't have any information from her, though. I suspect she'll probably join in a few minutes.
Okay. Thank you for that. So if she does, we'll ask her. We'll just defer the update. The next item on the agenda was the department update, and I'll turn it over to you, Julie.
Great. So I'll break it down per section. First, with social services. Since we last met, we have been in social services. We've had a reduced staff, and now we're back up to pretty much normal. We had been rotating 2 social workers a day through March, April, and May, and now we have our regular group of social workers coming in on their regular days. Just a reminder, everybody is part-time, so 19.5 hours, and they are busier than ever. We are processing the applicants for the COVID-19 Relief Fund that the town has set up with Operation Hope as the nonprofit that's able to accept the donations. We have distributed nearly half of it. I believe it's $57,000 that we've distributed to the applicants. We've processed, I believe, 23 applications. The maximum is a one-time payment to bills. We don't give cash. The fund goes directly to bills. And the maximum is $2,500. It's a one-shot deal, and all the paperwork has to be provided, embedded. And one of the requirements is that the applicant needs to exhaust all other forms of all of the resources and forms of assistance. And that's been great because they are self-advocating, independent, and they're doing exactly what the fund is proposed to do. So when they do receive the $2,500, it's because they have gone through the whole application process. A panel of community members does review the applications and approves them, and then a check is sent to whatever bills they have been approved for. So that's been a lot of work, but well worthwhile. We're also doing regular appointments for energy assistance, other financial assistance. You might remember that there's been a moratorium on evictions and also on utility shutoffs. So that's been helpful to families. Also, the stimulus and the increased unemployment of $600 a week. So people are holding steady when they are holding steady, but when all of that ends, we expect a real bump in need come about August. But we're busy. We're busier than we usually are. We've created, one of the social workers put together 50 boxes of activities for various age groups of children because there's not a lot of camps this summer. And we're distributing them this week. We sponsored with Fairfield Cares a program that was last night, and I think you all know about that one, called Fairfield Faces Racism. I thought it was fabulous. And that was a good deal of work, but well worth it because Fairfield is certainly trying very hard to make sure we address any of the underlying issues. But I thought it was a great reminder of the work that we do need to do. In terms of the senior center, we are doing grocery deliveries, lunch deliveries, and emergency bag deliveries. So far, with the buses, with CERT, and with Amy O'Donnell, our senior center director, we've done 3,000 lunches that started to Fairfield homebound seniors, which is pretty incredible. We distributed almost 1,500 bags of those SWACA groceries, the Agency on Aging groceries, which are more fresh groceries, toilet paper, vegetables, fruits, cheese, eggs, and we've distributed probably about 600 bags of emergency bags between Operation Hope and the Salvation Army. So we are really trying to address any kind of food insecurity. And then there's the fun part. So we're doing ice cream socials. We've done one so far, and we're doing one every other week. We're having a barbecue tomorrow, a drive-through barbecue, and we'll have one once a month. And we're doing Zoom programs, exercise classes and lectures and special interest things. And the other great part about this is that we're kind of a consortium of senior centers in the 14 towns that make up the area Agency on Aging. So we're sharing a lot of programs, which not only saves us time, saves us money, but really draws us even closer together, which I think is exciting. And the Friends are sponsoring one of our lecture series, Mark Albertson, and some barbecues. So that's a positive. Transportation has resumed on a very limited basis for medical appointments and shopping for people who do not live in senior and disabled housing. So if a senior lives in any of the sites, like Trefoil or Parish Court or Sullivan McKinney, GBT is providing rides to the supermarket once a week for each of those sites. We're providing transportation Tuesdays or Thursdays for seniors who do not live in those sites. And we're providing town-wide for seniors and people with disabilities Wednesday and Friday medical appointments. And we did receive a grant for a new bus while this was all going on from the state, and also a grant to try to expand our transportation hours to be a little bit later so that we can allow for later doctor's appointments and Thursday evening programs when we do open up. We've never had this grant, and it's a great way to have a pilot program of expanded hours because we get reimbursed for what we spend. So if we extend hours and it works, I submit the report, and we get that money back. And if we don't use it, it's no harm, no foul. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works when we do open, or for expanded appointments for doctors or shopping as this goes forward. I think that's it for me. Any questions?
I had a question, Miss Barbara. First off, Julie, oh my gosh, kudos to you for everything, that you've been doing. And it's mind-boggling, how much you've done and offering. And so thank you so much for all your amazing work. I know that you and I played tag for a little while, and we never connected, but where do things stand? You were thinking of something with a bereavement group or some kind of group, just for seniors who want to talk about what's going on. Did you find a way to make that happen, or, where does that stand, or is you not seeing a need for it right now?
There is definitely a need, and I did drop the ball on that, Barbara. What I was really focused on was getting this racism program going, and now that that has been completed successfully, I will bother you again, because we've had several seniors lose partners and spouses, and I think there is a great need. So I'm going to probably...
Okay, well, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, so please bother me.
Thanks, Barbara. I appreciate that.
Okay.
This is Loretta. Sorry, go ahead, George. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to comment. I was on last night on the Zoom program, Fairfield Faces Racism, and it really was excellent. It was an outstanding program. Hopefully it will be followed up with other programs, because obviously there's a lot to be done. But Julie, I just wanted you to know I thought it was terrific.
Thanks, George.
And is there a tape that if I couldn't go last night, but is there some way we can still listen to it, or was it recorded?
It was recorded, and when we get that recording, I'll share it with you, because I just thought it was wonderful. But yes, there will be a recording, and we're trying to get it on Fairfield TV as well.
Great.
This is Loretta, and I will echo the kudos. It was a great start and foundation to begin to preface future conversations and discussions and action, I hope. So for those of you who were not on, I highly recommend that you make the time. It's well worth it. Julie, in terms of the next steps and the task force that Nancy is leading, will you be on that task force? Do you know yet, or do you know the makeup and what that will look like?
I don't know the makeup. I don't think I will be on that. I think what they're trying to do is get community engagement.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's appropriate. I don't know who's going to be on it. I know that there's discussions now, but that's separate from us.
Mm-hmm. And something for us as a commission to think about in terms of that, when we think about next steps in the direction that this will be going, maybe housing and having real housing, and not the last meeting when I was refreshing my memory on the minutes, we talked about, it was discussed about NIMBY problems in terms of senior housing, and I think that goes along not just for seniors but for anyone of lower income, and having real housing reform in town. So if there's a place for us in those conversations. But it was a great, and you found the speaker, Mara? She came from you?
Yes, she has done trainings for our social work staff, and I'm amazed by her.
She's amazing. She was amazing. Is she local in town?
She was in Fairfield. Now she lives somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. It's Laura. Was Nancy the only select person involved, or were all three involved in it?
Brenda, the first select woman, introduced Nancy. She had another meeting to get to. We were trying to keep it very targeted towards Mara as the educational program. Nancy, as the chairwoman of the task force, was a moderator. So she kind of set the stage and then wrapped it up at the end. But we didn't want to have a lot of speakers. Brenda did introduce and kick off the program, and then Nancy was on, and then it was all Mara. She talked for about an hour and a half.
Wow. It's a long Zoom call.
It was great. Yeah.
Excellent.
This is Bernie. Julie, do you think it would be appropriate to contact Nancy and ask her if there would be an opportunity to have either a formal representation from the Commission on the task force or at least a liaison that could report back to the Commission?
Yes. Maybe a liaison. I don't know. It's theirs to set up, so I can't really speak to what their vision is of the task force and how they want that to run. So I don't know. I don't want to give you misinformation. I feel like they need to get it established, and then we go from there.
Okay, fair enough. And secondly, just in terms of your own report, one of the things that I was delighted to see was the way the town departments were pulled together in terms of the overall town response to what's been happening. And I know you've been at the table often, but do you want to just spend a minute or two describing how that came together and that social services and the department's charter was well represented at discussions?
Sure. Back in early March, before this COVID was even called COVID and was coronavirus, the emergency management team that's headed up by, depending on the emergency, it's either, if it's a health issue, it's the health department director, Sands Cleary, and if it's other, it's Chief McCarthy from the fire department. There were meetings to try to plan for what would happen if COVID came here. And we were all tasked with coming to a meeting with a plan for our departments. And so we started that early on, and that we were before most area towns. I'm a part of a consortium of human services directors, and nobody had the information in one place. And it's not a bragging thing, but it was a really advanced planning on the part of the health director and Chief McCarthy, that they had a vision of getting these conversations going early on. And the first select woman, she did a fabulous job of drawing together this team and her department heads to work together. And everybody had an equal seat at the table. Everybody was listened to. And as the virus got worsened and we were more involved, we met in person and also by phone, sometimes daily, depending on the department and what the need was. Some departments met more often than others, depending on the need. And we were encouraged and expected to work together as a team, and that's what we did. It really is a testament to her leadership and to that of the fire chief and the health director that we were all on the same page at the same time and able to get through this. And it is very nice to know my peers and to know the other department heads and who to call on. I'm very, very proud to be part of this team and to be part of this town.
Nice.
And Julie, just an aside, it was even before Corona, because I actually went to that training for clergy that the fire department did, and at the time, trying to get plans in place if there was like an active shooter or something. Little did we know, then down the road, not too much later, there would be a completely different kind of a pandemic, a disaster. But I think you'd already been in the mindset of planning and pulling all the pieces together even before this. So, I think that really helped when you had to hit the ground running. You'd already had a lot of things in place, I think.
Yeah, you're right. That's well said. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Julie. Any other questions for Julie?
This is George. Julie?
Yeah.
I just want to know, is there something that we as a commission should be doing in terms of assisting you and the departments to fulfill all these things that you're doing, food distribution, food collection and distribution, COVID-19 fund, and so forth?
Right now we're kind of stable. I mean, there will be, as things are scheduled, I'll send out to all of you when we're doing things, whether it's fun or work. It's nice to see how the department's doing, but it might be nice at some point to have you come in and meet these social workers who are working so hard. And I don't know how that will look, but it's I think that would be a real compliment to them to meet you and to see and for you to see who's doing all this work. But right now, in terms of the food, CERT is helping us with delivery and pickup, and we don't collect the food. It goes to Operation Hope or it gets dropped off by Salvation Army. But we have a really easy system going with CERT and with the drivers. So we're in pretty good shape for that.
Good.
Thanks, George.
And Julie, did I hear you say that all of the social workers are back and working their full scheduled hours?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know as well.
Yeah, it's great.
All right. The next item on the agenda was commission planning, and this, as many of you know, will go back a while. But as we're preparing for this meeting, one of the thoughts that we had would be that we would really try to have some sort of a retreat later this year, and the earliest it might be October, but we were thinking that it would be important to schedule it so that we could have at least the possibility of doing it as a team on site at a location together. And the purpose of the retreat would really be to help define the role of the commission in terms of what's going on in the environment and the town needs, but also to help develop a work agenda for the next year. So our initial thoughts on this, if there was agreement, would be that we would work on developing a plan for the retreat over the next couple of weeks, which would be presented and discussed, reviewed at the commission meeting for September, with a view to having the retreat at a date to be determined sometime October, early November. And we had thought that we would work out a possible goals, objectives of a retreat, but they would be related to how the commission can support both the department and Julie's work, the work of the team, and also define a work agenda for calendar 2021. So with that, I'm just going to open it up for discussion, views, comments, and whether or not this is seen as an opportunity.
This is Laura. Bernie, we have been discussing a retreat now for the last year, and I think that it's a very good idea to move forward with it, and particularly because we do have new members, and we want to try to set a path for how we want to move forward. So I'm in favor of it, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
And Bernie, this is Linda. Well, we talked about it the other day, and of course I'm in favor of it. And the other thing we have to think about is who is going to lead it to, or who our moderators going to be. Who we would invite to.
Yes, I think when we talked about sort of developing, presenting a plan for the retreat, we would include the recommendation that we do have a moderator of some sort.
Right.
With a few candidates identified for discussion with the commission as well. So that would be part of the sort of, if I could use the term, a work group over the summer, preparing that.
And would the moderators come from outside of the commission? You're saying you'd bring in somebody from the outside?
I could go either way, but I think I'd like to explore the option of having an outsider be as moderator.
Yeah, that's what I would vote for. Yeah.
Full retreat that we did have an outside moderator, and I thought it worked reasonably well.
Right. Right. No, my experience is always that it's nice to have someone from the outside because they come in without any, any past agenda bias. It's not, well, we tried that before and it didn't work. Well, maybe we did try before and it didn't work, but that doesn't mean we can't try it again. And I think an outsider would be more likely, to generate those kinds of discussions.
I would think so as well. So.
Bernie, this is George. I second that suggestion that it be somebody from the outside. I think it's really important. And secondly, as you're planning this, I'm all in favor of the retreat, by the way. I think we need to do that to develop some structure going forward and some ideas as to where we're going and what we're going to be doing. But I would hope that you will at least entertain the idea of including staff in this retreat because I think it's critical. And obviously we'd have to do it in a way as not to impose on their time. But, I don't like setting goals and agendas without including the people who are going to be executing it. So I think, and their input, I think, would be critical in terms of giving us a sense of what's reasonable, what's doable, what's needed. So I'm just putting that on the table as something to be considered.
Yeah, I would strongly.
Yep. Go ahead.
I would strongly second that as well. I'm not quite sure staff were at the last retreat that we did, which was a review of the prior retreat, but they were at that first retreat, and their input was invaluable. So I would strongly recommend that we follow that course again and that they be included. And I'd also like to leave the option of having a small number, perhaps, of key stakeholders in the community who might also help inform the discussion decisions. And I'm thinking of people like there may be an opportunity to have representation from, for example, Operation Hope, and I'm not just focusing on them because of the current partnership with them, but there's reasons why they could contribute to a discussion, and perhaps even there may be others that could be identified. But I'm not thinking of a large group, but 3 or 4 key community stakeholders that would have an interest in the work of the department and the agenda for the commission as well.
Good.
So, Bernie, it's Laura. Are you proposing that they be involved in the planning of it, or
just
actually in the retreat?
No, I think not. I think it's up to us to do the planning. Okay. I think we would have them as, once we define an agenda, I think the agenda will help inform who we want there.
Right.
And then just extend an invitation.
Okay.
Sounds good. Yep.
Where we are with this, I'm sensing there's a bit of a consensus in support of this, and with concurrence of the other members, I'd like to ask or nominate Laura to help sort of coordinate the planning of this over the next couple of weeks so that we might have a retreat plan presented at the September meeting. And I don't know if that requires a vote or not, Julie. I'll take some guidance on that. But if there's no objections, I think we just proceed as if.
No objections.
It's not a formal subcommittee, so I think it does not need a vote.
Okay.
It's more like a work group.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And
This is Loretta, and go ahead.
And if any commission member has the time or wants to participate in this, I'm just going to ask you to reach out to Laura or myself, and we'll make sure that you're involved in this.
Sounds good.
From a planning
Thank
perspective. Okay?
And it should only be that we can meet in person in October, right?
Right.
It should only be. It should only be.
Right.
All right. Is there any other
Laura, it's Linda. Laura, are you okay with all that?
I'm okay, Linda. Yes, thank you for asking. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'm really, really encouraged to work with any of the members that are interested in helping, because I think the more input we receive, the better it's going to come out.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Just before we're at the end of the agenda, but just before we close, Julie, there is a scheduled meeting for July and not for August. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we should plan, all things being considered, I don't anticipate that we'll meet in person in July, so we will plan on doing this again. And in the meantime, if commissioners have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to contact Julie directly. We're limited in what we can do outside of a meeting because of FOI, but we will plan as if we will have a meeting, even if it's remote, for July, and then we're off on August, and then reschedule for September.
So that would be July 23rd. This is Laura.
Okay. All right.
And
before
by
I bring
then,
the meeting
Bernie,
to a close. Sorry?
I just have a quick question, Bernie. By then, should we ask that any members interested in helping with the retreat have their responses prior to that meeting?
Yes, I'd hope they'd be able to contact you within the next week or so, Laura.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what is our goal then in terms of, this is Loretta, in terms of the planning and the next meeting, would we have more, once assuming that we've indicated who's interested, do we plan on having a framework to present at the next meeting, an outline of an agenda, for instance?
If this is Bernie, I was thinking that the group might work over the next couple of weeks and be prepared to present a report on the retreat at the September meeting. I'm just not sure that we would be ready by the July meeting.
Right.
But I think that would be work in progress. It might be a progress report, but I don't
Right,
think
that makes sense.
I don't think we would have a final plan for review and approval at the July meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, in other
so
words,
this is
Laura, we would review the
circulated.
members involved, yeah.
Yeah, it could be
Right.
circulated before September, but I think we discuss it as a formal agenda item at the September meeting with a view towards adopting and going forward with a retreat at a date to be determined in October or early November. All right, is there any other business that might come before the Commission?
Well, I just had a quick question, Loretta. Where does the subcommittee stand in terms of, for the? I'm not going to use the right terminology, so I'm being vague. You know what I'm? Disabilities. Yeah.
Nothing
Where
has
is that?
happened, since the world came to an end, and we went into crisis mode. Nothing has happened in terms of the first selectmen's
right.
decision and the council, the town attorney. So we need to work our way back into being on their agenda for consideration.
Okay.
And that's
right.
really
I figured nothing had happened. Right.
Loretta,
right.
This is Laura. How would we do that? What do we need to do to get back on their radar?
Julie, do you want to take that? I mean, in terms of, you had indicated that it needs to come from you?
Yeah, what I could do is just get back in touch with them. It's priorities have been different, so it's off the radar a little bit. So I guess it's probably a matter of putting it back on the radar. So I can ask them when maybe they could come to the July meeting for a little while and talk about that. I can't speak for them. I don't know, but at least I can reach out and find out how they would like us to proceed.
Is there anything that we can do to facilitate that? That would be helpful.
I can let you know once I do it, and if they come back to me, and if okay, thanks.
Yeah, just putting us up, making so you know that we're available.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I had actually talked to Brenda the other day on something completely different, and I introduced myself, and I did mention that I was on that subcommittee, and she said, oh, and, she wanted to hear drop more about it, And so it's not like she's never heard about it, She knows that it's out there. I didn't push anything. I just happened to mention I serve on the commission and on this subcommittee. And so, but it's tricky, like you say, Julie, right now, things are still, they're so busy with so many things that you don't want to feel pushy about it, and it's like to finesse it, just, not to lose it up from the radar, but it's also, not to say that you have to drop everything either, because it's, it's hard.
It is. I agree with you.
And this, Bernie, just for clarification purposes, the understanding that I had was that it could be appointed a standalone commission by a vote of the selectmen.
Yes, that was my understanding too.
Okay. Without going too large.
It's Linda. They were waiting to consult with the lawyer, right, Julie?
Right, and they were. Yes, before this all started, that we were hoping to meet with them and have them advise us on how to bring that forward.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's good news. This is Laura, that we don't have to go through the RTM. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, yeah.
All right. Is there any other business? All right. Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. George.
Thank you, George.
Second, Laura.
Laura, thank you.
Yep.
Any discussion?
Thank you all.
All right. Hearing none.
Thank you.
Call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It's good
Thank
to hear
you.
everyone's voices
Well.
at least. Okay. Everyone
Everybody
stay safe.
stay adjusted and
Take
safe.
care.
Yeah.
All the best.
Very well, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.